the independent facilitator. So specifically, you hire the facilitator to help lead you through the person-centered planning process. But you can ask for much more. You can ask them to help guide you through the year, to help you find a job, to look at the community resources that exist. You want people to think outside the box. The key thing is they can come into your IBPs and advocate for you for your budget. So you're not going in alone to get an increase in your budget. You're bringing your independent facilitator to help argue why these are unmet needs. So that's very helpful. They're also paid. You should know that you can also hire your regional center service coordinator. Not hire them, but ask them to do it. You will not be paying them any extra. I would say that in many cases, service coordinators will not be selected because they, number one, are not, a lot of parents are not happy with their service coordinators or their regional centers and see them as conflicted. Or number two, maybe because they've worked within the realm of the regional center for so many years, all they've done has been like, all they know is the vendors, all they know is the agencies that are out there, and they're not thinking about the YMCAs, the boys clubs, the girls clubs, the cool college professor, all these kind of unique things that exist out there that haven't been part of the regional center system. So so I think that people will certainly initially start using these more independent people who've been trained to be a facilitator, and then over time, 10 years from now, it might be that a lot of people use service coordinators because service coordinators have figured out what self-determination is. Yes?
Where do you find an independent facilitator?
So as we move closer to this program being implemented, Autism Society of LA has trained over 100 people so far, and we're going to be training probably another 100 this year. And we'll be putting a list of those people and their contact information on our website so you can contact them. I know that certain regional centers are already planning trainings for independent facilitators, and so the regional centers may be putting out this list, or those lists will start to become available, I think, as we get closer to implementing.
So you need to have an independent facilitator and a fiscal manager?
Yeah, no, you must have a fiscal manager.
Do you need both?
You're not required to have an independent facilitator, but you must have a fiscal manager because they're the ones who are writing the checks, and they have to be vendor. If you know exactly what you need, you don't need an advocate, you pretty much figured things out on your own, you can decide, you can do your own person-centered plan, you still have to have a person-centered plan. So you can't be like, oh, you're done. You still have to have a plan, and that plan has to be in writing. But if you kind of figured it out on your own, you can decide not to have a facilitator. I would not recommend that. I can tell you that I'm as bad as educated as a parent could be, and I really understand the system, and I know what community supports are out there, and I'm still going to have a person-centered plan with my son with an independent facilitator. Because I've already done one. When my son was 15, we already did a person-centered plan. It was one of the more uncomfortable experiences of my life. Because my son is not that verbal, and he stood up at the front with all these charts and all these graphs of my son's life and what he's interested in. And my husband and I had to sit there just like his teachers and his behaviorists and his grandpa and his sister, and we all just sit there and listen to them ask my son questions, and his answers were not the ones I would want him to give. Like, what do you want to do when you're grown up? I want to go to Tokyo Disneyland. And I'm like, okay, let's move on. And so they're like, well, so you want to go to Japan? Yes, I want to go to Japan. I said, well, what do you want to do in Japan? Besides Disneyland, because I want to speak Japanese. So all of a sudden they started going off on him taking Japanese lessons, a kid that can barely speak English. And my husband and I are like, hello, this is really, but it was so amazing by the end of it, because obviously they brought him back to say, how much do you think it costs to go to Tokyo? Oh, well, it's a lot of money. How are you going to pay for that? I need to get a job. What kind of things you could do? By the end of it, what came out of it was some very cool stuff. That he also, one of the things he said, one of the things they asked at the very beginning of any person-centered plan is, what do you love to do? And one of the things he said, which surprised us, was he loves to visit his grandpa. And we're like, oh, okay, well that doesn't cost any money. One of the thing that you should know is lots of things come out of person-centered plans that cost no money, that people don't realize. Because living a life goal, I mean, how many things do you all do that makes you really happy, that costs nothing? Reading a book, sleeping in, getting left alone by your children, It costs no money to make you happy. And so sometimes it's a person says, I like playing video games. I already own them all. I just like to play them. And we said, yes, but you can't sit in your room all day playing video games. And so the agreement is, okay, leave me alone for 2 hours a day. Do not nag me. I want to be alone playing my video games for 2 hours a day. And you have no right to walk into my room from 1 to 3 p.m. or whatever it is. And that is my time. And things like that come out of self-determination all the time. And it makes people really happy. And parents have to sit and keep their mouth shut and let this person speak, whether it's through typing, whether it's through eye blinking, whether it's through verbal communication. We have to listen to what makes them happy. And then we come in and support them. And obviously within health and safety things. If they said, I want to eat McDonald's 3 times a day, you would say, okay, there's some health and safety issues. Yes.
How about the conservatorship? If you have conservatorship, does that matter in any way? Is your decision?
It's an excellent question. This is not a conservator-centered plan. It is a person-centered plan.
Okay.
So a conservator ultimately does sign the IPP, which is why I am actually against conservatorship.
Now you tell me.
I'm a big fan of conservatorship, but there's a lot of people who already conserve their children.
Right.
And so, but ultimately, a person-centered plan is not person-centered if the conservator makes all the decisions that come out of it. So if you have a really good independent facilitator, even if you're a conservator, you have to still sit back and
Right.
listen. And know that what comes out of that plan is going to have health and safety concerns. I mean, nobody's going to want, if a person has diabetes, diet and exercise has got to be part of what it is you're talking about within the plan. And those questions need to get asked at the planning session. Yes?
I have a question about funding the individual facilitator, the independent facilitator. You say up there that this person will be paid from the individual budget, but if the budget is based on the services, doesn't that really cut into the money? I mean, I don't know how much an independent facilitator costs and how many hours, but
Yeah.
doesn't that?
So that's what I was saying before. People get very freaked out about the fact that so remember that when your budget is based on you using a bunch of providers who have overhead costs. So you may use a provider that has office space, phones, supervisors, and by the way, then the owner often makes lots of money. Not always, but often makes lots of money. And so you can decide, if all you're going to do in self-determination is go back to the same agencies you've been using, why would you use self-determination? You should stay in the traditional system. But if you're going to go and say, you know what, I no longer want to use this agency, I'm going to hire this individual, they're going to be my employee, I'm going to be paying them $15 an hour instead of the $8 that they're currently getting, and then, but in its former budget, they were paying $22 an hour for supported living, so I'm now almost doubling the wage of the caregiver, and I'm actually spending less out of my son's budget.
I see.
So that's how the money is ultimately saved.
Yeah, I have a related question that's, I'm confused about, maybe other people are, which is the chicken and the egg, which comes first? You get the budget first and then you hire the facilitator, or you hire the facilitator first? So at that point, you're just paying out of pocket to hire the facilitator?
Yeah, so
to develop the budget.
So brand new people to self-determination, it's going to be a little bumpy at the beginning, because independent facilitators are not going to get paid until the budget is approved. And so it's true, there's going to be a lot of facilitators who are going to have to suck it up and say, I'm going to be working for nothing until the budget's approved. But hopefully that's a process that's relatively quick. You don't need to be planning for 6 months to get your budget approved. It should be the independent facilitator works for a couple of weeks, a budget is created a week later, and then your IPP is the following week. It should be a relatively quick process because you want to get started. And then the big issue is that what if the budget that ultimately comes out is much less than you had wanted?
Right.
And so that's where having a facilitator walking in with you is going to be extremely helpful.
Part two of my question is, just so everybody understands too, once this goes into effect for everybody in 3 years or whenever, you still don't have to do it, correct? You still can stay with the old system,
Yeah,
or does
and
that?
I would guess the majority of people will stay
You
with the
still stay with
system.
the old system. Now, if a year or two after that you decide, well, the old system's not so great, can you at that point opt for self-determination? Okay.
Anytime during the course of the year, it doesn't have to be when your IPP is, you can go in and ask for it at any time. You can also leave at any time. If you've been in self-determination for 6 months and you're like, yeah, this is not anything I really wanted, you can leave at any time. However, for you, once you've left self-determination, if you want to go back into it, you have to wait 12 months. Because we can't have the regional centers, because each time you have to have an IPP, and we can't have it where people are going in and out every couple of months. So you have to, once you go in, you can stay in as long as you want. Once you leave, you have to be out for 12 months before you go back in. Yes?
Is there a possibility there might be a hybrid where, for example, your day program is fine? But
No.
Okay.
How about the budget? You talk about the budget, and it sounds like, there'll be a budget out there for every kid. Now, is the budget set by the people up in Sacramento? Every year they put aside this much money for this program.
No.
Where does
It's an
the,
individual budget. Every person, every participant, self-determination has an individualized budget.
so the state doesn't have,
No.
they don't vote on every year, they
No.
vote on a state budget?
The state budget is the budget of all of the developmental services. It's a $5 billion budget.
Okay,
And then they hand out that money to the 21 regional centers based on the population of that regional center.
right, but based on the budget every year, it could be up or down if they cut the budget
Right,
and
but it
these programs.
doesn't, it's a
it
little
could-
hard to say how it would go down to an individual participant.
Okay,
Yeah, because budgets are never like across the board cut. Consumers' budgets are never across the board cut. It's not like there's a 10% cut of everybody's individual budget. It's based on services. In the past, when there's been budget cuts, they cut out specific services like camp and social,
right,
social, recreational, swimming.
that stuff goes first,
gymnastics,
so
that kind of
okay.
stuff got cut. So it was service categories, not actual dollar amounts. Yes.
Have you heard from providers at all that, if you had an agency or something that you did like working with, but they are been paid through the traditional system, are providers gonna be flexible, or would some providers say, oh no, we're still only on traditional,
Some
or we
will.
only do self-determination?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the really visionary providers will say we're gonna be doing both. We're gonna both provide traditional services as well as have individual participants in the self-determination program where we negotiate an individual rate for that person. So the really forward-thinking providers will do that. There will be some providers, I would guess a whole lot of providers, who are saying, no, that's too much, we're just gonna stick with the traditional system. And then they're gonna lose out over time. Because if I had to make a prediction, 20 years from now, I would guess that our system will look like self-determination and will not look like the traditional system. But it'll take a long time for us to get there. So really forward-thinking providers are gonna need to get in on this right now. And some of them are. Yeah, I'm gonna take another couple and then keep going, go ahead.
Just question, for independent facilitators and financial manager, now there's fee obviously based on what they do. Is it gonna be mandated and capped, or is it a free-for-all, somebody could be more than others?
You guys ask excellent questions, and I need you to be in Sacramento with me, because I ask all these questions too. It has not been decided yet.
Okay.
So there's still very much meetings and meetings, we just had a meeting last week about it. If I had to guess, there's gonna be rates set for the fiscal manager, but I don't know that for sure. There are many people who are arguing there should be a negotiation between the customer, which is the participant, and the fiscal manager, saying, you know what? Because if you said, let's say the rate is $50 a month, but I only use one provider, you're writing one check a month, why should I have to pay $50 a month to you? As opposed to another participant who has 15 checks to have any rate set at all, although there might be caps for them. Because you may hire an independent facilitator, just lead your person-centered plan and show up to your IPP and then never see them again. Other people, in the pilot this happened, and other people have a facilitator that literally comes and meets with them once a month and says, how can we change this? Can you go in the community and find me these new things? I love art. Can you find me an art class? And they're really out there as their community connector. They are figuring things out for them and helping them, really, they're facilitating their participation in the community as opposed to just facilitating the relationship with the regional center.
Correct.
So obviously that's gonna cost a lot more.
But if they get you more, they're worth it.
Exactly.
Are you gonna keep analytics on performance and what these independent facilitators do?
Do you wanna join our board or? If we are a volunteer-run organization and probably not have analytics, I can tell tell you that DPS is required by the law after 3 years to do a complete analysis on the costs and the satisfaction rates. So they are going to look at overall how much did the participants spend and compare that to what they would have spent had they not been in self-determination. So they're going to be looking at that, and they're also going to be looking at the racial breakdowns to make sure that it was diverse racially and disability-wise and all that kind of stuff. So they're going to be looking at that. But the sort of usefulness of independent facilitators, I'm going to guess is going to end up being more anecdotal than it is kind of quantitative. Just because we're like, volunteers who are trying to make this happen. All right, I'm just going to move on real quick. So the one thing I just want to mention is the independent facilitator is called independent because they cannot provide services to that participant or be employed by an agency that provides services. So here's a good example. I don't know if any of you have heard of Tierra del Sol Foundation. Tierra is a great provider out here in the Valley who provides programs for adults. They also do person-centered planning, and actually did my son's person-centered plan when he was 15. If they do my son's person-centered plan again, my son can never participate in any of their programs. Because there needs to be a giant wall. You can't have it where I'm an independent facilitator, I work for ABC agency, and lo and behold, out of your plan comes, $50,000 worth of services that are now going to my agency. There needs to be that wall. Service providers, Tierra also can continue to provide person-centered planning services. They just can't provide them to any of the people they serve doing other kinds of programming. Okay? All right.
But then if you said, if you said that the regional center rep can be the independent facilitator, how does that differ?
They're not service providers. They're more like case managers or social workers.
So they can get paid for it in addition to what they get paid by regional center?
They're not going to get paid for it, no.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah, service coordinators do not get money out of your budget.
Okay.
Which is why some people may end up using them. People just have to be really thoughtful about whether this person is going to, really have that knowledge base. And some of them do. Some of them do. Most of them don't. Okay, so tell me the timing.
We went till 5.
Okay.
So it's 4:19.
Okay, good. So I'm shifting gears, but they're completely related. And I'm now going to talk to your second audience that I'm talking about this with, about some new rules that are going into effect in 2019. So it's a mere 3 years from now, that are very important to self-determination because these new rules must be followed with all your self-determination budgets, okay? Because the federal government who gives us the money has made these changes, and they're also giving us money to do self-determination, and they say any new funding grants that we're giving to states must abide by these new federal inclusion rules. They're actually called settings rules, and they're about the settings in which people receive services. And they want to ensure that these settings are fully integrated. So I'll just go over a little bit of history. So the way that regional center services are funded is through federal money. It's called Home and Community-Based Services Waiver Funding. It's out of Medicaid. Medicaid is the program, the healthcare program for poor people and disabled people in the nation. And what they have seen, this Home and Community Services funding was established at the same time the Land Act was established to ensure that people are not put in institutions, but they actually stay in their homes with their families or live in the community if they're adults. And when they established this, they said, we want to make sure they don't do anything that looks like they're living in an institution too. But over the last half century, they realized that the way this has actually worked out is that a lot of individuals that they give money to are actually living in either living in institutional-like settings or they're getting services in institutional-looking settings that are very segregated. Something that they call congregate settings, like from the term congregation, you're in a church congregation. And so they, over many years, were lobbied by the national disability organizations like the Autism Society of America, the National Down Syndrome Association, Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. A lot of these national disability groups really believed that what was happening is that all of this HCBS money was actually paying for programs that substitute for community, but don't facilitate people being in the community. And this substitution for community was not something they were willing to continue sending their money for. So about 2 years ago, in March of 2015, 2014, so March a year ago, they put out what was called their final rule on settings, and those settings stated that they need to fund, that they will only give their federal money to fund individuals with autism and other developmental disabilities. They must be in the community. And they will not pay for services that isolate consumers or don't show respect for their rights. And so they don't sit and quantify what that means, but they make qualities. Like, what are the qualities of inclusive environments? And what the bottom line is, if your son or daughter is in a program that is exclusively for people with disabilities, like Exceptional Minds, it is unlikely that the federal government's going to be spending their money on it anymore. And that federal money, it is regional center money. Because for every dollar the regional center spends, 50 cents comes from the federal government. So things are going to change substantially. So what do these settings need to look like? So first of all, they need to support full access to the greater community. So that means that you can't be walking into a day program where you're segregated, but you're spending your day with other people with developmental disabilities as well, and paid staff, and then you kind of sit there all day in like in a workshop or in a center. You can't do that. That's for sure out. You have to be able to choose from among setting options. So that means that if you are told by your regional center, this is the one provider, so Harbor Regional Center has it's very public, that they would tell parents, if you want your son in a day program, this is your one provider. This is your only option. And parents were very upset because they didn't like that provider. And so they actually filed a complaint with the Department of Developmental Services, and now Harbor actually has to provide them with more. But still, they still only provide them with a couple. And there must be a range of options for you, including those kinds of settings that are not traditional settings that we think of. So that it may be that they say, you know what, if you don't like this particular day program, this day program is, you have many options. You can go to your local community college and take an art class, or you can go to an adult school. I mean, there's many different options for you to look at that aren't traditional settings. You have to have the right to privacy, dignity, respect, freedom from coercion and restraint. So what they're targeting in that one is mostly housing. So those are for people who live in kind of more institutionalized, larger communal settings where they don't have, let's say, a lock on their door, they don't have the ability for having privacy, and sometimes, in some situations, they're actually physically restrained, they're tied to a bed, settings, or they're coerced to say, oh no, you have to give me your paycheck every month, these kinds of things.
I have a quick question for you, just to backtrack for a second about what you said about a program like EM. For example, if our young adult wants to continue their education, but they're not qualified necessarily to go to college, they want to take a vocational program on a specific topic that can help them become employable, is that something that can be covered by?
Yes. Yes. So it may be that, so let's say, let's talk about your auto mechanic again. You have a guy who wanted to be an auto mechanic, there's no way he could go to the community college and learn auto mechanics there. There's no way he could keep the way the class is structured. But you could find an auto mechanic who provides individualized tutoring of that person. And that's how you reach your dreams. The overall goal here is that people with disabilities live as much the same life as people without disabilities, with the supports and services they need to live their dreams and to meet their goals. Knowing that they have preferences, they have challenges, and how do we overcome their challenges for them to meet their goals? Because isn't that really what we want? I mean, I talk about this with, I just talked about this yesterday with a friend. My son is getting independent living services, and one of the things that they want to teach my son is how to ride on a public bus. And I said, why does my son need to know how to ride on a public bus? And I said, because he'll never drive, and so he needs to know how to ride public transportation. And I said, well, I agree he'll never drive, but it doesn't mean he'll never have a car. And he has people who can drive him in that car. So why does my son need to learn how to ride a public bus? My typical daughter is never gonna learn how to ride a public bus in Los Angeles. Now, if we lived in New York City where everybody rides public transportation, of course he should learn how to ride the subway. Of course he should learn how to ride the public buses there. But most people do not ride the public transportation in Los Angeles. We know that. And so we need to start challenging people. When they automatically say, this is what people with disabilities do, say, why does my son have to do that? His sister doesn't have to do that, so why does he have to do that? So I always tell parents, what if your son did not have autism? Or what if your daughter did not have Down syndrome? What would they want to be doing every day? How would they want to live their life? Let's help them live their life like that.
Because this school has all kids with autism in it, that self-determination would most likely not fund it.
Well, it's not that self-determination wouldn't fund it. You probably, I can't say this for sure, but it's likely in these group classes. Now, the individual tutoring that goes on here, I think, would be fine. But the group classes are likely to what's called trigger heightened. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the word that they use. It's basically heightened scrutiny. I was going to say security, and I knew that wasn't right. Heightened scrutiny. And that scrutiny means that the regional center or DDS is going to come in and say, okay, this person's in a segregated program. You need to show me the qualities to ensure that they're, and I'll show you in the next one, in the next slide, the quality, you have to ensure that those qualities are met in order for you to be able to do it. And so because self-determination is now being required, these new rules came out in March of 2014. Self-determination became a law in 2013. So we did not know that this little feature was going to happen. I am actually quite in favor of these new rules. I'm very worried about how they're going to be put into effect and how they're going to displace people eventually. If you have people with Down syndrome who have been going to the same date for 25 years, what are we doing to transition them right now? What choices are we providing them? How are we doing person-centered plans for them? And we're 3 years away, which seems like a long time, but that's nothing. If you have all these providers who've been doing the same thing for 40 years, are they preparing to change their program, or are they going to just go out of business? So, I'm on like a campaign to alert people now because DDS has not been doing a good job to tell people. All right, so living arrangements. What are living arrangements? What are the qualities of an inclusive living arrangement? So they must have their own lease. It doesn't mean that they can't live with other people with developmental disabilities, but they have to have these qualities. They must have their own lease, which in a lot of places they don't. A lot of places, because they have no lease, they have no rights. And so therefore they can get evicted at any time, which is really, really scary. They have to have privacy and lockable doors. In a lot of group homes, the staff just walk in as if these people they're not humans. I mean, the whole thing is that this is coming out of a history of our children not being treated like they're real humans, that they're second-class citizens and they have no human rights. And this to me is a real human rights measure. They have to have a choice of roommates. In many group homes, you're just told this is who you're living with. And it's so funny, I have friends whose kids have gone to group homes because of their significant behaviors living in their own home, and all of a sudden their behaviors get worse in the group home, and they don't understand why. And I say, well, what's their roommate like? Oh, they hate his roommate. I'm like, well then, what are they doing living there? In fact, usually when they get their own an apartment with supported living, their behaviors disappear or reduce substantially because they're getting to live their own life and nobody's bothering them. Freedom to decorate. I know that seems small, but in a lot of these group homes, they don't even get to pick their own furniture. They control their own schedule. This is a biggie because in a lot of group homes or a lot of congregate living settings, they say, okay, it's Saturday night, we're all going to see this movie, and an individual will say, I don't want to see that movie, I want to see a different movie. Well, it's tough. We're seeing that movie. Or you can stay at home. It's like, well, I'd rather go, do something else. No, sorry, you got to stay home. So everybody needs to be able, think about it. If this person's 30 years old and he didn't have a disability, would he be told he has to see a certain movie he doesn't want to see? We always have to ask ourselves, would this person be living this life if he didn't have a disability? The answer is no. Then their civil rights or human rights are being abridged, and we need to change things. Access access to food and visitors is another thing. People live in these congregate settings where they say, okay, breakfast is at 8, lunch is at 12, dinner's at 6, and if you miss it, you go hungry. That's not the real world. That's not the way we live. I mean, I tell you, if I were on a set schedule, well, maybe I would have lost weight, maybe. But, it's like you need to be on a very, you need to live like a normal person. A person who lives in the community gets to set their own schedule when they eat. Now, there's health and safety issues. If a person says, I want to eat all day long and eat really unhealthy food, all right, that's when their family, their circle support steps in and says, let me tell you the reason why this is not working for your life. And visitors is a big thing too. They have no visiting hours. We don't have visiting hours in our own lives. And obviously physically accessible. So this is non-residential settings, which are the programs like Exceptional Minds. So one of the key things that you guys do an amazing job of is that we have to allow individuals to seek employment in competitive integrated settings. And that, you guys are not being targeted, it's sheltered workshops that are being targeted. So many of you may not know what that is. Sheltered workshops are sort of centers where people with developmental disabilities work for sub-minimum wages and often don't do anything particularly productive. Sometimes they're stuffing envelopes, sometimes they're looping things, they're tying things together, and they're all working at, and some of them make like $2 an hour, or they make like a stipend of $200 a month, but they're there 40 hours a week. Those are being shut down with these new rules.
What are those called again?
They're called sheltered workshops, thank you.
Just for the record, Exceptional Minds pays above minimum wage.
Thank you. So you pay above minimum wage but your students are not.
Our students are paid when they work after school, they're paid above minimum wage.
Okay.
And in the studio, they're paid even more above minimum wage.
So of course, if they're here working after school, that's not gonna be something the regional center, but themselves.
Judy,
Yeah.
I totally understand how all of this plays a role, and certainly for most of the individuals, the children of everybody in this room. But what about when you have individuals that really have much more severe disability? I mean, how does this play a role?
Well, so our sons went to elementary school together, and I know your son, and my son is pretty impacted by his disability as well. And it's exactly what my son is doing. My son expresses a clear preference that he loves to go to libraries. That's his passion. He loves, and by the way, it's not like he's reading, Tolstoy. He's reading Dr. Seuss. He's 18 years old and he goes to the children's section. That's what he likes. He likes Dr. Seuss, he likes Disney books, and that's what he loves. And so he's every single day that's his reward. So he goes to the gym and works out, he does chores, he does some independent living skills, and then his reward every day is he goes to the library. And he's in the community the whole time. And so it is really important that he doesn't, he's actually just started a group program, my son, and that group program is not working for him because they end up going to shopping malls. And one of the things the person-centered play is what he loves. So my son says what he loves is he loves libraries and anything Disney. And then the second question is, what don't you like? My son hates babies. He hates the sound of crying babies. It's very hard for him to listen to. And so if you go into a mall, I swear it's an epidemic. There's a lot of babies there. And if you go to Disneyland, which is of course his favorite place, there's a whole lot of babies there. So he needs to go, so malls you can avoid. For him, Disneyland he can't because it's his favorite place. So he wears his noise cancellation headphones. But what are the accommodations that can be provided for that individual to do the things that they love and to avoid the things that they don't like? So that's what we have to figure out is what is their passion? Everybody has something that they like to do. If they like going to the movies, then that's great. Let's go to the movies. You're not going to a segregated movie theater. You're going to an inclusive movie theater, and that is fulfilling what they want in the day. But they're not having to go as a group and be with the group. Now, that doesn't mean that my son doesn't do some segregated things. My son takes a Jewish studies class that's segregated because he wouldn't be able to handle a general class like that. But I pay for that out of pocket. That's not Medicaid funded, just like I pay for lots of activities my daughter does out of pocket, and her school system doesn't pay for that. So we just have to, I can tell you, because in self-determination, in the pilot, people are all doing individualized things, and most of the people in the self-determination pilot are very impacted by their disability. So not people who went to college. And they're all living really great lives in the community, very individualized to them. Okay. All right, so, so my final thoughts, and then I can take some more questions. So, the most important thing that I want to instill in all of you is to understand that where we are moving towards in our community is actually that people with disabilities are the last civil rights movement. I mean, what I say to people, and I try not to be sort of inflammatory when I do it, but if somebody says something about what your son with autism should be doing, and instead of saying it's an individual with autism, you put in a black person, you put in an Asian person, you put in a Jewish person, it's like, well, your person, so a person with autism, well, they can't be voting. It's like, okay, well, that black person can't be voting, because remember, we thought black people didn't have opinions at a certain point. So we know that we all have opinions, and we all have preferences. Well, there is no way my son could self-advocate. We know that everybody has personal preferences. Oh, my son needs incredible amounts of supports. Well, there's a lot of people who don't have autism who need incredible amounts of supports in certain things in their life. No one is truly independent in this world. We're all interdependent. And so because we need to teach our kids how to be interdependent, how to ask for things when they need it, and how to be able to do things on their own when they can. And so the values of both self-determination and these new rules, these new setting rules in the federal government are empowerment. It gives us a sense of real control over our own lives, but at the same time, that we are the same as everyone else. If we have a disability, we have the same civil rights, the same human rights. That we have choices, which obviously with self-determination, it gives you a full range of those. We have freedom. Freedom is a value that we don't talk about because our system has been controlled by professionals for so long, telling us from the age our child is diagnosed what we should be doing. I can tell you when my son was diagnosed when he was 3, we were given a long list of things. You need speech therapy, you need occupational therapy, you need behavioral intervention, it's like totally overwhelming. Why did someone give me a list of everything my son has to do instead of saying, let's think about your son individually and what would be good for him? Because you know what? All that laundry list of things we did for my son didn't help him one little bit. It's when we started thinking about what his particular needs were that he started getting better. And my son has made dramatic progress in his life. He still has a lot of challenges, but he's made dramatic progress when we stopped saying, when we started standing up and saying, no, my son doesn't need that anymore. Or I don't want, my son cannot live his life in therapy all day long. He had 40 hours a week, just because some doctor out there said 40 hours a week is the right thing to do, doesn't mean that it's the right thing for that child. What is the right thing for that child? That child with 2 hours of downtime every day to just stand in the corner, let them do it. Because that means that maybe the rest of the day, the other 22 hours, they're going to be okay. And we also look at the ability of the person. Instead, the other thing that we have been told all our lives is that autism is defined by deficits. Communication deficits, social deficits, behavioral deficits. Instead of defining the individual by what their strengths and their gifts are. So we gotta stop thinking about disability as deficits and start saying that it's a difference. And then how do we accommodate for those differences so that our sons and daughters, no matter how impacted by their disability, can live productive lives in the community and be happy. And then we also look at support. That it is not saying that the support is one size fits all. That it's like, I'm going to send my son to this day program where they do the same thing every day, and they all go together as a group, and they never ask, is this what you want to do today? Or wake up in the morning, what do you want to do today? My son used to have a lot of behaviors. The minute he left school and started controlling his own schedule, all of it disappeared, and he just giggles every day. He wakes up and I said, what are you doing today? Because I'm going to this library, and I'm going to the gym, and it's like his life is just out there for him, and he's so much happier. And then finally, responsibility. That if we give individuals with disabilities the responsibility, individuals with disabilities, did I say that right? The responsibility to take control of their lives, they will achieve more. Their outcomes will be better. Because we'll say, you know what? You don't get to go to Disneyland because you have to buy your own pass, which means you have to do A, B, C, D, and E to buy your own pass. And you're gonna be highly motivated to do that, and you're gonna work hard. And all of a sudden, they're incredibly proud that they were able to achieve that. Whatever it is that their goal is, they're doing it on their own, and we're not always holding their hands. So that is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any more questions. I can see your pretty faces now.